My name is Ashley. I'm 35 years old. My husband didn't come home for 3 nights, and when he finally returned, he only said, "Where I was is none of your business." I replied, "All right." Then I gently placed a file in front of him, one he never imagined I could possibly have. The moment he turned the very first page, his hands started to shake, and he couldn't say a single word. I'm 35 years old, and I've been married for 9 years. We have 2 kids, ages 7 and 5. Up until about 6 months ago, I thought we had a decent marriage. Not perfect, but what marriage is. We had our routines, our family dinners, our weekend trips to the park. I worked reasonable hours, came home every evening, helped with homework, did bedtime stories. He worked part-time from home, handled most of the household management, and we split parenting duties pretty evenly. It felt balanced. It felt normal. The first night he didn't come home was a Wednesday in early autumn. He'd mentioned that morning he might go out with some friends after dropping the kids at school. I said, "Fine, have fun." Didn't think anything of it. I picked up the kids from school myself, made them dinner, supervised homework, got them bathed and into bed. By 9 p.m., I texted him asking when he'd be home. No response. By 11 o'clock, I called straight to voicemail. I didn't panic right away. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he was having such a good time he lost track of time. Maybe he'd had a few drinks and decided to crash at a friend's place rather than drive home. All reasonable explanations. I went to bed around midnight expecting to wake up and find him on the couch or already up making coffee, but he wasn't there. Thursday morning, I got the kids ready for school by myself. Still no word from him. I called again. Voicemail. I texted nothing. Now I was worried. I called his best friend, asked if she knew where my husband was. She sounded confused, said they hadn't made plans, hadn't seen him. I called his mother. Same thing. No one knew where he was. I thought about calling the police, filing a missing person report, but something stopped me. Some instinct I couldn't quite name. Instead, I dropped the kids at school, took the day off work, and started looking through things at home. His laptop was locked with a password I didn't know. His phone was with him, obviously, but there was an old tablet we shared that he occasionally used, sitting in the kitchen drawer where we kept charging cables. I opened it. He'd been logged into his email on it and had never logged out. I felt guilty looking, felt like I was violating his privacy, but he'd been gone for almost 24 hours with no explanation. I think I had a right to be concerned. What I found made my blood run cold. Months of emails, dozens of them, all to the same person, someone I didn't recognize. The messages were flirtatious at first, then increasingly intimate. Plans to meet up, discussions about hotels, complaints about me, about our marriage, about how he felt trapped and unhappy, about how being with this woman made him feel alive again. I sat there in our kitchen staring at this tablet, reading message after message, and I felt like I was looking at a stranger's life. This wasn't the man I'd married. Or maybe it was, and I'd just never really known him. Thursday evening came and went, still nothing. I picked up the kids again, made dinner again, did the bedtime routine again. My daughter asked where her dad was. I told her he was visiting a friend and would be home soon. I didn't know if that was true, but what else was I supposed to say? Friday morning, still nothing. I got through the motions of another day, dropped the kids at school, went to work for a few hours because I had meetings I couldn't miss. Picked them up. Dinner. Bedtime. My son asked this time. Same answer, same uncertainty. Friday night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about those emails, thinking about where he might be, thinking about what I was going to say when he finally came home. Because I knew he would come home. He had to. His whole life was here. The kids, the house, everything. Saturday morning around 10 o'clock, I heard a car in the driveway. I was in the living room with the kids who were watching cartoons. I told them to stay where they were and went to the front door. He was walking up the path, looking tired, but otherwise normal, like he'd just been gone for a few hours instead of 3 full days. He came in, walked past me without making eye contact, and headed straight for the kitchen. I followed him. He poured himself a glass of water, drank it, set the glass in the sink. "Where were you?" I asked. My voice was calmer than I felt. He turned to look at me. "Out." "Out where? Just out for 3 days without your phone, without telling anyone where you were?" My phone wasn't off. I just didn't feel like answering. I stared at him. "You didn't feel like answering. Your wife calling to find out if you were alive, and you didn't feel like answering." He shrugged. "I needed space." "Space? You have 2 children who are asking where you were. You have responsibilities. You can't just disappear for 3 days without a word. I'm back now, aren't I? That's not the point. He leaned against this counter, crossed his arms. Look, where I was is none of your business. I'm an adult. I don't need to report my every movement to you. Something about the way he said it, the casual dismissiveness, the complete lack of remorse or even basic explanation made something in me snap into place. This wasn't confusion or panic on his part. This was deliberate. This was a choice. All right, I said quietly. He looked surprised. All right? Yeah, all right. If that's how you want to play this, then all right. I walked out of the kitchen, went to my home office, and pulled out a folder I'd been putting together since Thursday. I'd spent 2 full days compiling everything. Printed emails, screenshots, bank statements showing cash withdrawals I'd never known about, credit card statements with charges at hotels and restaurants I'd never been to, receipts I'd found buried in his car's glove compartment when I'd searched it Friday afternoon, phone records I'd requested from our carrier showing hundreds of calls and texts to a number I didn't recognize. I'd even done more digging, found out who the number belonged to through a simple online search, found her social media profiles, found out she was married too, with 3 kids of her own, found out where she worked, found everything I could possibly find, because I'd known when he finally came home, I'd need leverage. I walked back into the kitchen. He was making himself toast, acting like nothing was wrong. I placed the folder on the counter in front of him. What's this? He asked, not looking at it. Open it. I don't have time for your games. It's not a game. Open it. He sighed dramatically, like I was being unreasonable, and flipped open the folder. I watched his face as he looked at the first page. It was a printed email from him to her dated 3 weeks ago, talking about how much he wished he could just leave his family and start over with her. His face went white. His hands started shaking. He turned the page. More emails. Then the next page, bank statements. Then the credit card bills. Then photos I'd pulled from her social media of the 2 of them at a restaurant. Him laughing, her hand on his arm. He looked up at me. Where did you get this? Does it matter? I said. You went through my private messages. You disappeared for 3 days without a word. I think I had a right to figure out what was going on. This is illegal. You can't just... Actually, I can. Joint bank accounts, joint credit cards, shared devices, all fair game. And the phone records are under my name, since I'm the primary account holder. I have every legal right to access them. He was gripping the edge of the counter now, knuckles white. You had no right. I had every right. You're my husband. We have children together, and you've been having an affair for at least 6 months, probably longer. It's not what you think. Really? Because it looks like you've been sleeping with a married woman, spending our money on hotel rooms, and lying to me every single day for months. What part am I misunderstanding? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Were you with her? I asked. These past 3 days? He looked away. Answer me! Yes, he whispered. I was with her. Where? A hotel a few hours away. And her husband, I said. Does he know where she was? I don't know. That's not my problem. Not your problem, I repeated. Just like our kids asking where their father was isn't your problem. Just like your marriage falling apart isn't your problem. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Explain to me what I'm missing here. Explain how any of this is justifiable. He was crying now, but they felt like calculated tears. The kind people cry when they're cornered, not when they're genuinely sorry. I'm not happy, he said. I haven't been happy for a long time. So you cheat. That's your solution. Instead of talking to me, instead of suggesting counseling, instead of being an adult about it, you just start an affair. You're never here, he shot back. You're always working or busy with the kids. When was the last time we went on a date? When was the last time you even looked at me like you were interested? I work to support our family, I said. I'm with the kids because they're our children and they need their parent. And I stopped planning dates because every time I suggested one, you said you were too tired or had other plans. Plans which I now realize meant you were seeing her. He wiped his eyes. I didn't plan for this to happen. But it did happen, for months. And you chose to keep doing it. You chose to lie to me every single day. You chose to sneak around, to spend our money, to risk our family. For what? Some excitement? Some attention? It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You made a choice. Multiple choices. Every single day you chose her over me, over our kids, over everything we built together. He looked at the folder again, at all the evidence laid out in front of him. What are you going to do with this? He asked. What do you think I'm going to do with it? You're going to divorce me? That depends. He looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. On what? On whether you end it right now, completely. Block her number, block her email, never contact her again, and on whether you're willing to do whatever it takes to fix this marriage. Counseling, transparency, rebuilding trust from the ground up. If you're willing to do that, I continued, then maybe we can work through this for the kids. I wasn't sure I believed what I was saying, even as I said it, but I wanted to see his reaction, wanted to see if there was any part of him that would fight for our family. He looked at the folder, then at me, then back at the folder. The calculation was visible on his face, weighing his options, trying to figure out what answer would benefit him most. I need time to think, he finally said. That told me everything I needed to know. You need time to think, I repeated. Your wife just confronted you with evidence of your affair, asked you to end it and work on our marriage, and you need time to think about it. This is a big decision. No, it's not. If you loved me, if you cared about this family at all, it would be the easiest decision in the world. The fact that you need to think about it means you've already made your choice. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but I'm done pretending. I'm done being the idiot wife who doesn't know what's going on in her own marriage. You want time to think? Fine. But you're not doing it here. Pack a bag. You can go stay with your mother, or a friend, or a hotel, or with her for all I care. But you're not staying in this house until you figure out what you want. You can't kick me out, he said. This is my house too. Actually, the house is in my name. I bought it before we got married. Remember? You moved in. Legally, I can absolutely ask you to leave. His face hardened. If you kick me out, I'll take the kids. No, you won't. Because if you try, I'll show a judge this folder and explain that you abandoned your children for 3 days to be with your affair partner. See how that plays out in a custody hearing. You're being cruel. I'm being practical. You made this bed. Now you get to lie in it. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact second he realized he'd lost, that his plan, whatever it had been, wasn't going to work, that I wasn't going to be the doormat he apparently thought I was. Fine, he said coldly. I'll pack a bag. He went upstairs. I heard drawers opening and closing, suitcases being dragged across the floor. The kids were still in the living room, oblivious to what was happening. I'd have to tell them something eventually, but not yet. Not while I was still processing it all myself. He came back down 20 minutes later with a suitcase. I'll be at my mother's, he said. We can talk about this later. We can talk through lawyers. You're really going to do this? He asked. Blow up our entire family over one mistake. One mistake? I said. You've been having an affair for at least 6 months. That's not one mistake. That's 6 months of deliberate, calculated choices to betray me and our family. Don't minimize what you've done. He didn't have an answer for that. He just walked out, got in his car, and left. I stood in the doorway watching him drive away, and I felt this strange sense of calm, like something that had been broken for a long time had finally shattered completely. And now I could see clearly for the first time in months. The kids asked where he was going. I told them he needed to visit their grandmother for a few days, that he'd be back soon. I didn't know if that was true, but I had to tell them something. They seemed satisfied with that answer and went back to their cartoons. Over the next week, I met with a lawyer, filed for divorce, and filed for full custody, citing abandonment and infidelity as grounds. My lawyer said I had a strong case, especially with all the documentation I'd compiled. He'd abandoned his children for 3 days to be with another woman, then showed no remorse and refused to end the affair when confronted. No judge would look favorably on that. He tried to call several times. I didn't answer. He sent texts, lots of them, ranging from apologetic to angry to pleading. I didn't respond. All communication went through my lawyer, just like I'd told him it would. 2 weeks after he left, I got a call from his mother. She said my husband was devastated, that he'd ended things with the other woman, that he wanted to come home and work things out. I told his mother that if he'd ended the affair, it was only because he realized he wasn't going to get to keep both. That wasn't remorse. That was damage control. She tried to convince me to give him another chance for the kids' sake. I explained that I'd offered that chance when I confronted him with the folder. I'd asked him to end it and fight for our marriage. He'd said he needed time to think about it. That told me everything I needed to know about his priorities. The divorce took 6 months to finalize. He fought for custody, of course, but the evidence was overwhelming. His 3-day disappearance, the affair, the financial documents showing he'd spent thousands of our money on hotels and gifts for her. The judge gave me primary custody, with him getting supervised visitation until he could prove he was stable. The other woman's husband divorced her too. She reached out to me about 3 months into my divorce proceedings, asked if we could compare notes. We met for coffee once. She was devastated, had 3 young kids of her own, and had no idea what her wife had been doing. I showed her some of the evidence I'd compiled. She thanked me, said it helped her case. We didn't stay in touch after that, but I heard through mutual connections that her divorce was equally messy. As for my ex-husband, last I heard he was living in an apartment across town, working full-time now since he needed to support himself. He sees the kids every other weekend under the supervision of his mother, who volunteered to be the supervisor so it wouldn't be a stranger. The kids have adjusted better than I expected. They miss him, of course, but they're resilient. We're in family counseling, the 3 of us, working through their feelings about the separation. He tried to reconcile several times in the first year after the divorce, showed up at the house, sent letters, had friends reach out on his behalf. Each time I held firm, not because I was trying to punish him, but because I knew you can't rebuild a relationship with someone who only wants you back after they've lost everything. He didn't want me. He wanted the stability I provided, the family structure, the comfortable life. Those aren't reasons to stay married. Looking back now, almost 2 years later, I realized there were signs I missed, or maybe chose to ignore. The way he'd pull away when I tried to be affectionate. The way he always seemed distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. The way he started dressing differently, paying more attention to his appearance, even on days when he claimed he was just running errands. But I also realized that I can't blame myself for not seeing what he was deliberately hiding. He made conscious choices to deceive me. He could have communicated his unhappiness. He could have suggested counseling. He could have asked for a separation if things were that bad. Instead, he chose the path that would cause the most damage to everyone involved. The file I put in front of him that morning changed everything. Not just because it exposed his affair, but because it showed him that I wasn't the oblivious fool he'd apparently taken me for, that I was paying attention, that actions have consequences, that you can't just do whatever you want and expect everyone else to accept it. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it, if I should have tried harder to save the marriage. The answer is always no. I gave him a choice: end it and work on us, or lose everything. He couldn't make that choice, which told me everything I needed to know about what I meant to him. The kids are doing well now. We have our routines. I'm both mother and father to them most of the time, which is exhausting but also rewarding. They're happy, healthy, doing well in school. They see their father regularly enough that they maintain a relationship with him, but not so much that they're exposed to his chaos. As for me, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I'm not dating yet. Not ready for that. But I'm building a life I'm proud of. I'm present for my kids in a way I couldn't be when I was constantly worrying about my marriage. I'm focused on what matters: family, stability, honesty, trust. The file I placed in front of him represented months of deception on his part and 2 days of investigation on mine. But more than that, it represented a line in the sand, a statement that I wouldn't accept being treated that way, that I had standards and boundaries and self-respect. He couldn't say a single word when he saw what was in that folder because there was nothing to say. No explanation that would make it better. No excuse that would justify what he'd done. No words that could undo 6 months of lies. And his silence in the end said everything.